Hey there, and welcome to week 2. That is the second round of the 5v5 Retro RPG battle. In week 1, spoilers coming. 3, 2, 1. The Super Nintendo beat out the PS2 by a score of 1-0. This week, the Super Nintendo, I said PS1. Hey there, and welcome back to the 5v5. This is round 2, week 2, however you want to put it, for the Retro RPG battle. Now, in week 1, the Super Nintendo managed to beat out the PS2. So now it takes on the PS1 for the actual bragging rights of which one is the winner. And as this is a brand new format that I'm trying out, this is my own little creation. Things are going to be a little bit different each time to like kind of nail down what works the best. Last time around, I had cards that were listing each game. They should have been done in Sharpie. I fully admit that. But this time around, I have 2 cards. One for Super Nintendo, one for PS1. And I'm going to read off them, and we're going to have some nice little graphics or video or something going on around me. So let's go ahead and get started with the finals of the Retro RPG battle. First up, we're going to have, for the Super Nintendo, representing basically gamers worldwide and the Nintendo Switch as well, we have Super Mario RPG, one of the greatest RPGs ever made, possibly one of the greatest games ever made. Definitely would be on a list of one of those 100 games to play before you die things. It comes in at an 8.3. Over on the PS1 side, we have Final Fantasy VIII, one of the more divisive ones within the franchise. Although, I know there's a couple people out there who absolutely love Final Fantasy VIII. And, you know, I gotta admit, I've never beaten Final Fantasy VIII. I keep ending up not getting past disc 1. Not that I get, like, beaten and give up or whatever, but there's always something that pulls me aside, and I end up deciding not to come back because I'm not going to start back fresh. Because when I finally get time to go back to it, it's normally months and months, or in sometimes years later. So I do know a lot about it, but what I know really doesn't matter in this case is it comes in at an 8.3. And before we get any farther, let me say that all these scores are coming in from... Oh, Estelle's out and looking outside. Okay. All these scores are not from me. These are aggregated and combined over onto this beautiful little website known as Moby Games. So that's where all the scores come from. If you want to get a little cheat to get an idea of what's going to come in the future, you can check that out. Not sponsored. Hashtag don't think they would if they could. So at both of them having an 8.3, that's a draw. And the winner will be determined by how many wins a system has. A draw's a 0. It can end 5-0, it can end 1-0, it can end it can end 3-2. all five battles must happen. And yes, this is also without a script, if you can't tell. Coming in for the Super Nintendo at number 4, we have Secret of Mana. With its long-running series, The Secret of Mana was re-released within a trilogy of the first 3 games of the Seiken Densetsu series, which I think is how it's pronounced and what it's called in Japan. It was released on the Switch, which partially led to the new game Secret of, or excuse me, Mana, was it the new Mana game? It completely escapes me right now. I want to say Trials of Mana, but that was the remake of the 3rd game. But it's a series that I'm not a big fan of, but I know there's a lot of people that are. Number 4 for the PS1 is, we're going like it goes backwards from lowest to highest, but the second battle representative for the PS1 is Chrono Cross. Again, a very divisive game, but it has a lot of endings. It has a ton of characters to end up potentially recruiting. It, as well as another game I've never finished, simply because, again, I started playing it at a time in my life when all the branching paths and multiple characters started to throw me off. I was like, I think I was like 19 or so at the time. And I've never gone back to it because there's always been so many other things. It's one I do want to go back to. I've seen other people play it. It looks like fun. The battle system is unique, at least at the time. And yeah, it comes in though at an 8.4, which means it knocks out Secret of Mana. Hits that big old KO. Super. So far, PS1 has 1 victory. Super Nintendo is at 0. Next battle. For the Super Nintendo, we have Earthbound, the definition of cult classic. And we will hopefully someday see Mother 3 get translated and actually released. Still mad Reggie couldn't get that done when he was with Nintendo. But anyway, that comes in with an 8.5. For the PS1 representative, we have Vagrant Story. Now, I'm going to be dead honest with you. I really don't know a lot about Vagrant Story. It's one of those games that I own, both physically and digitally, because basically any RPG or really any PS1 game at all that was released on the PS3 store, I bought. So I own, a lot of PS1 games digitally. But I have no real idea about it other than it's an RPG that is often brought up in the Hidden Gems conversation. That comes in with an 8.6. So it knocks out Earthbound. So far, that means 2 victories for PS1, 0 for the Super Nintendo. Next up, for the Super Nintendo, representative is Final Fantasy III, also known as Final Fantasy VI to those of us who understand how the numbering system worked, which is still weird to explain to most people. That the 3rd one is actually the 6th one, and the real 3rd one just never came over and was actually back on the NES, and then re-released onto the DS and PSP. And those versions are different than the Pixel Remaster. It's a whole convoluted thing with the numbering system for the early Final Fantasies. But anyway, 8.6 for Final Fantasy III. High love. Oh, Stell's getting a little rowdy. For the PS1, our representative is Final Fantasy IX, which is one of my personal favorite Final Fantasies. Vivi and crew. I'm sorry, Vivi's the real main character. Fight me. Fight me. Vivi is the main character. Final Fantasy IX comes in with an 8.6. So that's going to be a wash. So that's a 0-0 on that. So that still means 2-0. Estelle, please don't do that. Please, not right now. Trying to keep her from jumping up onto the camera area and making it go all wobbly whoop. Because we have one last battle. This battle, well, it's obvious the PS1 will win, but how will it win? And there goes a wobbly whoop. Will people be mad at this final matchup? Because this final matchup, the Super Nintendo has Chrono Trigger. One of, if not the greatest RPG ever created, in my opinion. It's one of my first, which, yes, there may be a little nostalgia goggles going on, but I'm co-signed by millions of people, so yeah, there's that. It comes in with an 8.7, which is all the Super Nintendo representatives. The final representative for the PS1, I mean, you know what it's going to be. It's Final Fantasy VII. There's not much I can say about Final Fantasy VII that hasn't been said ad nauseum, except, well, I personally think it's so freaking overrated it's not funny. Not saying it's a bad game, I'm just saying it's overrated in the fact that people hold it to a way loftier place than it should be, just in general. But it only comes in with an 8.6. Chrono Trigger beats out Final Fantasy VII. Sorry again about the wobbly whoop. Estelle is being a little brat right now. But that means that the Super Nintendo ends up having one victory. The PS1 ends up having 2 victories. So our winner for the best retro RPGs is the PS1. Although I could have been funny and try to say that because it's Chrono Trigger, the Super Nintendo wins. But no, it's completely fair in that aspect. But no matter which system you choose, you're not going to go wrong because you're going to be getting a lot of great RPGs. And, you know, if you've liked this, if you've enjoyed this little thing that I've created in this format versus the other one, let me know. If you think that this is the most boring thing you've ever seen, also let me know, because again, I'm still trying to gauge how I'm doing this and the best method for doing it all. But anyway, as always, this has been Azure Tony. Today, we definitely found some fun in gaming, and I hope you enjoyed yourselves too. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. I'll catch you next time. Arigatou gozaimasu.